I want you to imagine this scenario. You turn the news on and you see a Category 5 heading straight for your town. Sadly, it hit your home is flooded, everything's damaged, and you make your claim to the insurance company. But they tell you they're not going to cover the flooding. Now your claim is sitting in limbo somewhere. This is not just a story. This happens to a lot of people every year. So this episode of the podcast, we're going to discuss some of the things you can do to protect your home and family. This is episode 310 of the Social Engineer Podcast, the fourth Monday series. I'm Chris Hadnagy, CEO and founder of Social Engineer LLC, the Innocent Lives Foundation, and the Institute for Social Engineering. And I've been doing this podcast since 2009, if you can believe that. And as we all know, we got our Emmy award-winning and all sorts of award-winning co-host, Mike Holfeld. Nice to have you here, Mike, as always.
Great to be here. For those of you watching, I'm using my cell phone today. My computer went down, so it's a little bit different visually. Audio should be good, and the topic is great. We have one of the best in the business here to share her thoughts on this. I think it's going to be a great episode everyone will enjoy.
I agree. And so let's introduce our guest. This is Lisa Miller. She's the former Deputy Insurance Commissioner to Florida, who is a disaster insurance and recovery expert. She consults with insurance companies that represent about a quarter of Florida's 6 million personal and commercial residential policies. That is huge. Her Tallahassee, Florida-based firm, Lisa Miller and Associates, produces a twice monthly newsletter on all these subjects. Lisa also hosts the Florida Insurance Roundup podcast. She also helped launch the Hurricane Claims Mediation Program, an initiative that has helped consumers expedite the settlement of residential and commercial insurance claims. Sounds like you've had a very busy career. Lisa, thank you for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. And to say that I eat, breathe, and sleep, trying to help Floridians through catastrophes is an understatement.
Yeah, that's a good point, because right now June is the start of hurricane season here in this state. So this is a really important topic for us to start discussing. Maybe the first question, what can property owners do to start preparing for hurricane season?
That is a great question. And, my good friend Mike Holfeld has worked so diligently throughout his career to spread the news about what we as homeowners and renters should do to get ready. The first thing is have a conversation with an insurance agent. For those of you that own your home, you pay your insurance agent a commission. They like hearing from you, whether you believe it or not. And it's just to make a 20-minute appointment with them and ask them this question. If my home were to blow away, if all that was left was a slab and the wind blew it down, because remember, your homeowner's policy doesn't cover the surge that could wash it away, how much would the insurance company pay me? What is the total limit of my insurance policy? And when you get that number, ask a contractor. I asked my insurance agent, if my home were to blow away in the wind, the insurance company agent tells me that I would be receiving $200,000. Can I rebuild my house for $200,000? That's where the rubber meets the road. And you don't have to be an insurance expert to ask that question. And if you don't understand something when you're on the phone with your agent, there are no dumb questions. So if you think about it, the first thing we have to do this season and every season is make sure that our insurance policy is current with our current structure that we live in. Make sure you have enough coverage to cover the entire structure. Make sure you have enough coverage to cover your contents. All my contents in my home were from my grandmother or thrift stores. So I don't need a high contents limit. I can't replace the cherished things from my grandmother. They're priceless. But I've chosen to reduce my contents covers to bring my costs down. But some of you that have very expensive electronics and furniture and incredible surroundings in your home, make sure you have enough money to cover it if they were to blow away. So first on my list, know your coverage, call your insurance agent. Mike, I know you've got thoughts about that.
Well, I do. And I was doing some research on this, and Chris and I, we always like to do a little research to get some background. The last time we had 3 hurricanes hit was 2005. The year before, 2004, and I'll never forget this, I was in Orange County at the command center, and then Mayor Rich Crotty said, Mike, it's a weather freak show. And the reason I'm telling that story is because we had 3 hit us last year, guys. and we could have 3 this year. And I'm talking about the state of Florida. So my concern is, Lisa, and I think it's important, the cost. What's the real cost? Is it going to be $3,000 a year, $5,000 a year? And are there companies we can depend on? Because I know you work with so many of them.
The good news is this, Mike. Our incredible insurance commissioner, his name is Mike Yaworski. He has an annual exercise for all of the homeowners insurance companies that do business in Florida. And that exercise is to stress test, that's the term he uses, our insurance companies that do business in our state.
Okay.
So he makes them show him if a category 6, and I'm being facetious, the highest one's a 5, goes through Tampa Bay, and insurance company A, you have 30,000 policies. Do you have enough reinsurance to cover that, to pay those claims? If every one of those policies were to blow away, they have to prove to him that they have that. So those stress tests that he does, and that's a relatively new phenomenon of the past 5 years or so, it's how he gives himself comfort and his incredible team at the Florida Office of Insurance Regulation that, after the storm, he's not getting calls that companies aren't able to pay the claims. I mean, this industry, think about it, weathered 3 storms last year and actually was able to put money in the bank. And we want our insurance companies to put money in the bank so they could pay our claims.
Right.
And that was unheard of, Mike. So you ask a very good question. Can we take comfort as Floridians that the 50 some odd companies that write our 8 million property insurance policies, are they going to be there when the time comes? And I say to you, yes, they are, because the regulators in this state are the toughest in the country. They take no prisoners. And if you even so much as think as a company, you can slide or skip buying what you need to back up your company and make sure you can pay claims, it won't happen in Florida.
That's good to hear. One of the things Chris and I talk about is the impact of prices on communities. And I'm just wondering, do we have a cap set? I mean, a lot of people have been complaining. I've been getting a lot of calls. I'm sure you have too. Wow, Mike, the price went up 1,000 and went up 2,000 from last year. I mean, is there a cap on these things, Lisa?
So this is what I say to those of you who are watching your insurance premiums. Hopefully you're watching them this year level off from where they went in, 2020, 21, 22, and it was crazy. We're seeing 30, 50% increases. A lot of what that was, there were 3 main reasons in those higher escalating prices that we saw through the roof, literally. One was the cost of reinsurance. And we have no control over that. About 40 cents of every dollar we pay in our premium to our insurance company goes to pay for reinsurance, which is insurance for insurance companies. Mandatory. Companies have to have it. The law has its parameters, and that's what helps them pay claims. Number 2, inflation. The cost to rebuild your $200,000 home 4 years ago is 40% higher today. If you look at the cost of a piece of plywood, 4 years ago it was $12. Today it's $20. So inflation has added to those escalated premiums because it costs more to replace your home, and you have replacement cost, most of you do, on your policies. And the third reason, and I know you've seen the governor talk about this, are the billboard lawyers, as the governor called them. The lawyers that would constantly advertise, let's sue your insurance company, and they file thousands of lawsuits and hoping a few will stick so they can get their fees out of that. That's all stopped. And that's been probably the biggest reason we've seen our rates level or go down. In fact, the insurance commissioner said in his last testimony that out of 43 rate requests, I believe 25 were for decreases. So, in fact, I read in the Florida Trend magazine this issue on page 104, Florida Peninsula Insurance Company. The CEO is Paul Atkins, and in that article said he'd be reducing his rates 10%. So they're coming down. Now, you will see in the marketplace, there was a smaller company that's asking for a 30% rate increase. Their hearing is in the middle of June. I doubt seriously they'll be successful at, securing all that, but we want to listen to that and see what their reasons are. And it could be because their reinsurance costs have gone up, which they have no control over. So I do want to give encouraging news to those listening. I bet if you were to look at your cost of your insurance 2 years ago as compared to today, it's either flat or down. And if it's not, it could be because you have an older roof. You may have older electrical, older plumbing. But talk to your insurance agent, or you can get in touch with me, and I'm happy to give you ideas on ways you can reduce that premium. Like I said, I did when I reduced my contents coverage, because I think my home replacement cost is about $320,000. My replacement cost was half of that. I don't need $150,000 to furnish my house. So I think I dropped it to 75, and I was able to do that.
Oh, that's a good strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when I was listening to your comments on the first question, I was thinking, I have no clue to the answers to those questions. Like, I don't know. And I'm like, as soon as we're done with this podcast, I'm emailing my agent, because I actually have no clue what I would get. And I know just from these sales guys that come around and want to buy your house, that what I bought my house for, it's probably near 2.5 times what I can sell it for now. So I do not believe I have enough replacement cost to actually build a new home if this place were to get wiped away.
Thank you
That's
for
scary.
saying that, Chris. And, we're all thrilled that our homes are worth 2 and 3 times what they were. But we got to pay for that in insurance premiums, because it costs more to replace it, because the value of those homes and the cost of the structure to rebuild it is 2 and 3 times more. But I'm so pleased to hear you say it. I like the fact that you're going to email your agent. It's always nice to have it in writing. But remember, you pay that agent approximately 10% every year of your premium as a commission. And they're proud of the fact that they want to give you good service. And if they don't, obviously there's plenty of other agents out there. So don't be afraid of them. It's kind of like talking to your doctor. I was on blood pressure medicine for 20 years, and my doctor noticed in my blood work something was off. And he goes, I should have noticed that. After about 20 years, when you look at changing your medicine. So it's a lot of the same thing. Know what you got, know what you're doing, and help your professionals think for you.
So are there some hidden dangers within hurricanes that we need to be aware of?
It's the dreaded flood problem. I mean, when you see the floods in Kentucky, there's a study that just came out by a company called Rethought Insurance Company, and it's a specialized flood insurance company. It just released a report that 32% of the homes that were damaged in I think it was the Ohio River Valley flood 6 weeks ago, were in an X zone. And an X zone, according to the FEMA maps, means it's never gonna flood. Yet 32% of the homes in the X zones flooded. When you see that Broward County in April of last year had 41 inches of rain in 2 days. So whether you live near water or not is irrelevant. If you live near water, you got to have it. But even if you live inland, 41 inches of water in 2 days, where's that water going to go? In your house.
Yeah.
Well, my motto is this. If your driver's license says Florida, you're going to flood. There is no such thing as an X zone. And if you are in an X zone, your flood premium's about $1,000, less than, $100 a month to provide coverage, up to $250,000 in coverage for your house. So by all means, if you live in an X zone, don't take the attitude, I'll never flood. I'll live in an X zone, which is FEMA's designation for it'll never flood, which we now know is misguided. And really buy that flood insurance. If you live in an A zone or an AE zone, higher propensity for flood, check with your agent on what it would cost you. So that's my biggest, nightmare, the not discussed enough consequence.
Right.
Is we are not buying flood insurance. And we have a lot of X zone properties, and they should be buying because it's cheap, because they're going to flood, period.
For the people watching, Lisa, what else can we do to protect our homes? Should we get storm shutters? Should we put drains around the house to move the water away from the house? Are there defensive strategies we can use?
What a great question, Mike. We spend so much time upgrading our granite countertops, putting it in a brand new pretty shower stall, making sure we paint with the new, everything is gray and white. Have you noticed that in all the architectural magazines? Everything's gray. But we never walk the outside of our house. We know our houses. If you've got old jalousie windows, which I just love, but they're not weather resistant. And if you do nothing else as a homeowner, remember these two things. The most vulnerable parts of your home are openings, windows, and roofs. Okay? Openings. And then, the other piece, and the biggest opening is your garage door, right? That's your largest opening. And then the other piece is your roof. You want to keep your roof strapped down. When your roof goes, your house goes. Mm-hmm. And I live in a house that was built in 1976. And when Hurricane Helene was coming toward Leon County, and I was talking for a fleeting second with our incredible emergency manager, Kevin Guthrie, and it was on one of his 5 o'clock calls before that hurricane was to hit Leon County. He said, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm in my house in Leon County." He was, "Lisa, your house was built in the 70s. It is going to be, it will blow away. Get out of there." And I just didn't even think about it. So there's not a lot I can do to my house. I have what are called gable ends, those pretty gables on the either end. It's an old ranch style house. I can't do much for my house. Mm. But what I did do, when I put a new roof on, I put a metal roof on. My roof was only 10 years old. My shingles were deteriorating. We'll talk about roof shingles and what roofs are doing in a minute. I got up in the rafters with my roofer and I asked him point blank, "Are you putting enough pins and clips in my roof? Because it's all I got in this 1976 house. I don't want to replace my gorgeous old jalousie windows. I'm going to take my chances." But for those of you that are more reasonable than I am, think about getting a quote for hurricane-resistant windows. You'll get a really sporty credit on your insurance premium. Sometimes if you get a new roof, it can be as high as 40% reduced premium for a brand new metal roof, which is what I got when I got a brand new metal roof. And that cost me $25,000. But my return on investment, I'll get it back in about 8 years. And I'm so comfortable with that metal roof that I have. So yes, Mike, openings and roofs are the most important things. Your garage door is your biggest opening. You can brace that. Talk to a garage door company. So when the wind's coming, you brace that so the wind doesn't push it in. You can put extra long deadbolts in your doors so your doors don't blow in. And of course, impact windows. Awesome. With that
tax break on the windows too? I think we do.
We do. In fact, they're debating that right now in the legislative session. I don't know when we release this podcast if they will have reenacted the hurricane supply tax break. I hope they do. The tax holiday, as they call it, where you don't pay sales taxes, which is a quite significant savings on these hurricane supplies.
Yeah, it is. I mean, those are some amazing tips you gave here in this podcast. I really feel like I don't care if anyone listens to this. I learned this is like a personal lesson for me. Well, I am very unprepared for hurricanes. I really am.
For admitting that. A lot of us don't want to say we don't know, we're not prepared. But it's a year when you own your home, it's your largest asset.
Yeah.
And you want to do everything you can to make it safe so you're safe. And of course, the beauty of making your home safe is if there is a voluntary evacuation and you have a reinforced home, a fortified home is another term that one of our great companies uses, you can shelter in place. If you know that your roof is strapped on, your windows are resistant, you're studying what the wind speeds are going to be, you know the wind speed that your windows can handle and your door openings can handle, you can shelter in place. And if you're building new construction, let's talk about that a minute. A lot of the big production builders, I won't name them here, but we know who they are. You can't drive a mile in the state of Florida and not see another 300-tract home developed.
Mm-hmm.
And many of us have said in conversations that when you look at those developments, it's plywood and 2x4s. Have you noticed?
Mm-hmm.
We are building with sticks. Well, my house was built in sticks in 1976. So if my house is going to blow away, I wonder what those homes are going to do. So as a new home buyer, and you have the luxury of saying to your home builder, I want extra roof straps. There's a new wall board that's out that's made of magnesium, and it withstands wind pressures of 145 miles an hour. Insects don't eat it. You could just go online and look up innovative building materials. Look at what some of these materials are. It may cost you 10% more, but the headache of going through your house blowing down.
Yeah.
I did a podcast with a gentleman named Marshall Gabuti, and he has a development down in Cortez, Florida. And he built those homes to resist. It's kind of like Lakewood Ranch and Babcock Ranch. You've heard of those developments. They build resilient homes. And those homes withstood these storms without even a blemish. And Chris, I'll introduce you to Mr. Gabuti and his very forward thinking and the structures. And he's about to build another development with homeowners that want these resilient homes that are willing to pay the extra 10 to 12% to build it.
Yeah.
So, we all should know our home. I know my home like it's my best friend. I know I've got old windows. I know I've got a nice metal strap down roof. I don't have a garage, but we know our homes. And really, before you put in the granite countertops, maybe get an estimate for a new roof. Now, and I'm going to talk about 2 shingle roofs. So there was a blockbuster discussion in a January Senate committee that I know none of your listeners listened to. But it was in the Senate Banking and Insurance Committee, chaired by a credible senator from the Pasco Hernando area named Blaise Ngolia, who I think will probably be our next CFO. I'm just guessing, the CFO of our state. And he put together a panel, and he had on that panel a representative from the Institute for Business and Home Safety, which is a 35-year-old organization that is nothing but steady resiliency, home safety, business and home safety. He had a representative. He had the insurance commissioner, Jaworski. He had Kevin Guthrie, our state's emergency manager, who's just awesome. He had a couple of others. And the Institute for Business and Home Safety also referenced in, I think it's page 105 in this month's Florida Trend magazine. And maybe I'll get Paul Atkins, the CEO of this company, on your show. But there was a discussion about shingle roofs, and the insurance commissioner threw out into the marketplace for discussion's sake that maybe that 30-year warranty that's sitting on a stack of shingles, square shingles, isn't really 30 years. And when you dig deep into what that warranty says, it's for defective shingles. That warranty should not make you think the shingles are going to last 30 years, but that's what people think. Oh, I've got a 30-year shingle.
Right.
It's not what it means. It's misleading. And so the insurance commissioner suggested that after about 10 years, according to the studies of the IBHS, Institute for Business and Home Safety, that shingles have lived out their useful life. Well, of course, the debate is now with the Shingle Manufacturing Association, who took great issue with that. And you can see both sides of the debate in that article in the Florida Trend. Of course, they say that metal roofs are not the be-all, end-all, and, you just kind of get the debate. But, it's up to us again as homeowners. When is the last time if you send a roofer up on your roof, they're going to tell you need a new roof. These people that knock on your door, can I go look at your roof? What are they going to do? They come down. I wouldn't let them on my roof. I wouldn't answer my door. But they're going to climb down and tell you need a new roof. But if you call someone you trust and say, what do you think the life is of my roof shingles? They're pretty much going to tell you, but not these people that, go door to door. And then, you know, like I said, start thinking about replacing it, I think, after 10 or 11 years, because it's 105 degrees in August, guys, right? How many seasons of 105 degrees can an asphalt shingle handle?
You know, you
But
brought
that-
up the strapping roof. I want to go back to that so that doesn't get lost. How do an engineer go up there in the attic, take a look and say, you know what, you need to strap it down more? Because that's a great defense. I thought that was a great point.
Well, and you know, straps are they literally look like a little metal kind of squirrely Q thing. You could look them up online about what a roof strap looks like. And I don't think you necessarily need an engineer. I think if you just put in reinforced roof straps on an internet, I love Google, it'll tell you, you know, there's one company out there, I won't name names on this show, but they are the leader in strapping and roof technology and resiliency. And they've got every strap and clip you could imagine. And I'm sure they're the first thing that'll come up on the web. But I don't think you need to hire an engineer unless you got a buddy and a neighbor and invite them over for a cocktail and have a meeting with your engineer neighbor. But you can a lot of times do your own research and go up in your roof or in your attic and look and see how are the trusses attached. The roof truss is attached to my house because there's like a 2x4 that goes up and the truss comes down, and then you have these little squiggly things that strap it together, and that's what you want.
Okay. And not too expensive?
No, not expensive at all. I think you could probably, I mean, let's just say for a standard 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, I bet a roofer would come in for, I don't know, $2,500, $2,000. Strap your roof.
Peace of mind, huh, Chris?
Yeah, I can't argue that. You know, Lisa, you had a lot of information and tips here today. Is there a place that people could either I know you said you're a consultant and things like that. People can reach out to you, or you mentioned your podcast. Where can they listen to that?
Yeah, you know, that's a great question. OIR, the Office of Insurance Regulation, just put out a mitigation website. And maybe even while we're on this podcast, it just for your listeners, go to www.floir.com, Florida Office of Insurance Regulation, floir.com, and pull up their new mitigation web. Just came out 2 days ago. I haven't even looked at it. But I think a lot of this information is there. I think you can even go in and put in what you may have, the features of your home, and it may give you a suggested idea of what your mitigation credits might be. We need to do some more research about that. And maybe we can get the commissioner to come on your show and talk about his belief. That's why he did that website, because people were searching for a one-stop shop on mitigation and resilience.
That would be great.
I'll make sure that link gets into the show notes too.
Yeah, end of the show. Is there anything we neglected to ask? Something you want to leave the listeners and viewers with?
Yes. After the storm, don't answer your front door. I mean, my motto is, people you know come to your back door. People you don't know come to your front door. Don't answer your front door. It is the biggest scam in the books where it's unfortunate, you know, these, I'll call them crooks, thieves, they're just unscrupulous. They don't need to be canvassing neighborhoods right after a storm, and they know people are most vulnerable. They come to your door and they say, we'll take care of everything.
Right.
And then they inflate what it should cost. Call your insurance company first. Get an adjuster out there. And if your home is not severely damaged, it's slightly damaged, and your elderly neighbor next door is in bad shape, let them go see her first. You know, be neighborly. So just be careful after a storm and know your stuff before the storm. Thank you for that question.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lisa, for coming on the show. I mean, it was a lot of great information today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Always here for you guys. Thanks for what you do.
Lisa, awesome. You know what, Chris, before I go, Lisa has some tremendous newsletters that she puts out. Lisa, where can our viewers and listeners check out your newsletters? Because they are fantastic.
Sure. And put this in your show notes, www.lisamillerassociates.com, lisamillerassociates.com. You can sign up for it right there. We have about 15 to 18,000 readers every 2 weeks. And then during legislative session, we put one out every week if you want to keep up with what they're doing to you in the legislative session.
And can they also get a link to your podcast at that URL?
They sign up for the newsletter, they automatically get our podcast.
Okay, perfect. Just then we'll make sure that's in the show notes with the other website that you gave us. Again, thank you for coming on. And Mike, as always, you bring on great guests. And next month, we have Senator Darron Soto, and we're talking about social media attacks. So this will be a really interesting and sadly very timely topic for all the listeners and for us. So until then, stay safe, call your insurance agent, and we'll see you next month.